BSSS Rhythm. BSSS Rhythm. BSSS Rhythm.
BSSS Rhythm, the international online radio से मैं हूँ आरजे फरजीन and I welcome you all to another episode of the Radio Rhythm podcast, जहाँ हम आपके लिए लेकर आते हैं कई सारी inspiring personalities और उनसे जुड़ी हुई कई सारी interesting कहानियाँ भी. So with the hope that all of you are as fit as a fiddle, let's dive into our today's podcast. So before I begin, let me inform you well in advance, जो हमारे आज का शो होने वाला है, it is not just going to be informative, but it's also going to be super interesting. Or should I say, interesting? Okay, that was a bad one. But yeah, you heard me right. We will be talking about IELTS today. Now, what exactly is IELTS? IELTS, as far as I know, stands for the International English Language Testing System. Which is basically an exam that all the aspirants who are willing to study abroad have to mandatorily clear in order to get their visas approved. Well, मुझे तो बस इतना ही पता है, but don't worry, I've got you covered because I've got someone with me who has got a great deal of expertise in this field from Eduwire. Eduwire is a prominent study abroad platform and reputable IELTS training center. They have successfully facilitated the dream of over 1,000 students to pursue higher education abroad in the last 4 years. Today, we have amongst us a Cambridge certified IELTS trainer as well as an education counselor from Eduwire, Mrs. Tabinda Khan. Welcome to the BSSS Rhythm, ma'am.
Thank you, Farzeen. That was a wonderful introduction and I like the energy and enthusiasm with you began. I am very much honored to be here.
Likewise, ma'am. So, how are you feeling being here at BSSS and in our rhythm studio?
Wonderful, exceptionally beyond my imagination, with such a nice staff, nice people all around, and BSS is one of the renowned institutions and one of the prestigious institutions in Bhopal. I feel privileged to be here.
Lovely. So, my dear listeners, be ready because we are about to fly you off to the world of IELTS. So consider me as your today's air hostess and ma'am as our pilot who will be guiding us throughout this journey and will be giving us some valuable insights over IELTS. So buckle up because we are taking off. So ma'am, firstly, I would request you to please explain to our listeners about IELTS in detail.
Of course. So, as Farzeen already introduced with the acronym, IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System. This is an English language test that gives a student an international recognition because these days there's a huge pool of students who are aiming to study abroad in all the first world countries primarily, be it Canada, Australia, the UK, the USA, and along with that all the European countries such as Italy, Germany, France, Finland and Sweden. Finland and Sweden. So these are the prime countries where students are aiming to go. And all these countries require a student to sit for an international test that evaluates their proficiency with English language, wherein they need to score a desired band, which enables them to proceed further with their applications. So it stands for an English language test.
Okay, so basically it tests the proficiency of an individual.
Proficiency on 4 levels basically. It's the listening part, the reading part, the writing and the speaking part.
Okay, got it. So to spare myself from any further embarrassment, I already apologize for any grammatical errors I might make in this podcast. So anyways, while you were explaining about IELTS, I was curious, is the IELTS test difficult or is it like, easy peasy lemon squeezy? I don't think it's easy peasy, but is it extremely difficult?
See, if you talk about the difficulty level, any test, when a child sits for any test in the world, he has to prepare. No test is taken without any preparation. But IELTS is such a test where a student doesn't need to memorize any answers, to mug up any answers. I've basically termed it as English mathematics because it is completely based on practices. The number of practices a student takes, the more he elevates his levels with English language. And yeah, it takes time and patience and comprehensiveness of the student with the language.
Okay. So still on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the difficulty of this test?
See, again, that's a question which is a tricky one though. But I really don't like to draw a line of difference. But yeah, the students who are already there from missionary backgrounds, particularly who are enrolled in CBSE schools, they have a perfect command with the language. And other than that, there are students from all kinds of schools, but still they aim to go and study abroad. But yeah, those who are steadfast and patient are able to take the test. They're able to understand the structure of the language, what the language is demanding from them. So there are various kinds of students. Yeah, there is a difficulty. If you ask me if to rate the test, the level of difficulty for English background students is, I would say, 6 to 7. But those from non-English background, the level at times reaches to 10, which we will discuss further in the questions to come, obviously.
Sure. Well, that was a very wonderfully framed answer, I must say. And as I also mentioned previously, that Mrs. Tabinda has been associated with Eduwire from a very long time. So, ma'am, would you mind sharing our listeners more about Eduwire and how has it actually facilitated the students in studying abroad?
Yes, of course. Eduwire is a study abroad company. So let me tell you all, we incepted in the year 2019, and it's been like we say 5 running years now, and over the span of time we have been successful in sending more than 1,000 students, so all the countries that I just stated at the beginning. And if you ask me how do we send the students, a student walks to us. They are basically for 2 categories. One are there who are heading for undergrad program, and the second one are going for the master's program. When a child walks to us, we evaluate the person, we counsel the students, then we read out his profile, then we match his desired courses that a student would be willing to take. What course would lead him to a brighter prospect and a brighter future? Then we check on with their desired countries. Like some are there who want to go to English speaking countries, and some are there they prefer Europe to go. So these are the basic countries where the students believe that they should go. Yeah, we head on with their preferable countries. Then we help them in selecting those courses. Along with that, we help them in shortlisting the universities or colleges. Then we help them with the entire document process. Then we make them prepare for Ielts, as we are just discussing on that. Then with their financial requirements, if someone is financially completely flexible, there's a problem with that. But yeah, we have financial assistance as well. We don't provide, we lead them to the relevant banks that help them with financial loan, where they can head on with their education. And then we write the SOPs. Let me tell you, SOP is termed as it is in full form. If it's called the statement of purpose. For any university, it is required. And moreover, when we file a visa, finally for the student, the statement of purpose is the backbone of any document. When the visa officer reads it, when he wants to read it, that the student is coming seriously to study. The student wants to come to our country. Why is the student shortlisted our country? They want to check it out. So we have to be very, very transparent with our purpose, that I'm coming here to study because this thing was not available in my country. And if I get an international education, I will have higher chances to come back to my country. And yeah, when I'm saying that, we need to mention that the student will finally come back to the country, and it's up to the student. If he or she wills to stay there, they may stay there. If they want to come back, it's up to them.
Okay. So basically these SOPs is what that determines if their visas get approved or not.
It's the entire thing that we just discussed. Each and every step matters. But the SOP is it's a final nail in the coffin.
Okay, got it. So Eduwire is not just providing counseling and training, they're also providing financial assistance.
Everything under one roof.
That's
when a student walks into us, he need not go anywhere.
That's wonderful. So, ma'am, is there any strategies you would like to recommend to our listeners for tackling Ielts?
Of course. Being a trainer, one thing I would like to help the students know, many students at times they struggle a lot with that. What are tips and tricks? See, there is no magical tip and trick. Yeah, there are certain strategies though. The test is categorized into 4 parts. It has 4 modules. The 2 being listening and reading, which evaluate our receptive skills. The other 2 being writing and speaking, which evaluate our productive skills. Now, when we talk about receptive skills, what we are receiving that test in a written manner. We are reading something and we are abstracting answers out of that text. Similarly, when we are listening, an audio is being structured to us by native speakers. We are listening to it and we are predicting the answers. But when it comes to writing and speaking, it evaluates our productive skills, wherein it means that we have to be productive with the way we write and the way we speak. And an average Indian man with writing and speaking is unfortunately 6, because I really would not like to blame the schools, but yeah, reading is something that has to be have an adaptability, because students these days, they do not read at all. Apart from the textbooks, they do not read, which I encourage them to read all the time. They need to be listening something based on English. If you're not into some podcast, then you will, if they are not in, they have to listen to the podcast. But if the students need to, at least they should watch some good web series that are educational and informative. What helps them in that way is they are listening to something, and I ask them to watch anything with subtitles. They are reading something at the same time. And the third important thing is that students, you're getting entertained. So again, all things under one roof. Head on with that and improve your skills, because language is one thing. Even if you're planning to study abroad, or you're planning to stay in India and study and work at any corporate, any organization would require your English skills. So improve from a level you are to a higher level. Level does not mark any one level, but yeah, it helps us elevate. We need to elevate. I am also learning every day. We all need to evolve from the point we are to the point we desire to be.
That is correct. I totally agree with you on this point. I also think that web series is a very strong tool if we have to enhance our vocabulary.
Yeah, it is.
So the next question that I have for you, it is pretty much similar to the previous one. Is there any resources or tools that you would refer to our listeners?
Of course, that's a great question to be asked. And now let me tell you all one thing. Ielts was created by Cambridge University. Now, it is a UK-based body. Everyone is familiar with that. When they incepted with their organization, they later on collaborated with the British Council, which is again a UK-based body. And furthermore, they collaborated with IDP, which is International Development Programme. It is an Australian body. So Cambridge is the test preparing body. The test conducting bodies are two. Before July 2021, it was both British Council and the IDP who were conducting the test in India. But after July 2021, it's only the IDP that's taken over British Council. Now IDP has the monopoly. Coming back to the resources, you always will have to practice from authentic Cambridge books. There are so many resources, so many kinds of tests available, and plenty of them are misleading. Exactly, they are misleading. They're just adrift from the authentic sources. So always practice from authentic Cambridge books. They have several volumes. Every year in the month of May, a new volume releases. This year we are expecting Cambridge volume 19. In order to practice well, it will be wise if you take from volume 10 till volume 19. They're easily, if you purchase volume 19 right now, it will be very, very pricey. But you can buy all the other volumes. After 6 months elapse, after you purchase one book, then after a book is released, then the volume price goes down. So it's better that you have all the Cambridge books from 10 to 18. They all have 4 tests in them. 4 with listening, 4 with reading, 4 with writing, and 4 with speaking. And speak as much as you can. Speaking, like if you try to improve your comprehension and vocabulary and grammar, everything is instrumental to us to elevate our levels with English. But speak a lot. Even if you're sitting with your family, sitting with your friends, with your peers, with your faculties and teachers, talk to everyone in English. If you're preparing for IELTS, otherwise also we need to hone our skills with English language. And writing, it has to be thoughtful. It has to be structured well. IELTS, I would say, just adhere to formal lessons of English. The more formal you are, the more you grow. Believe that. And with the resources, it's authentic Cambridge books. Take the test from that, and you yourself will see the difference. And always under the supervision of experienced trainers. Please take care of that.
Okay. So out of all the categories that you mentioned, that the IELTS exam is subdivided into, my question is, in which of these categories do students face more struggle?
If we talk about struggle, the students believe that they face a lot of struggle with reading, because reading is like, we all have taken unseen passages back in school. They were pretty easy, and this is just a very small example that I would love to state, that this is how I introduce my students to reading. When we used to take passages, they were very clear, and it was like an open book test. A passage was there, and suppose a question was there, where was the old man climbing? The answer was, the old man was climbing on top of the hill. But in IELTS reading, they play with us with paraphrasing. They play with synonyms. In IELTS reading, in the passage, the information would be, an elderly person, preferably an octogenarian, was evidently seen to be climbing a cliff that was obtuse at such and such angle. Now that is something that makes a massive difference. And students think, oh my God, why am I taking IELTS? But with lots and lots of tests with strategies, we have to be very keen. We have to be very, very keen. When it comes to reading, we all have been studied at textbooks. Those were for education purposes. We had to study them, obviously, because we were seeking knowledge. Other than that, if you're able to read through any resources, if suppose you have Times of India subscribed at your home, do read it. Everyone has access to newspapers. Newspapers, they change our language drastically and massively. Again, this one quote I would love to repeat over here. This, my students, if they would be listening to it, they would come across, ma'am ke paas ek hi quote rehta hai hamesha. But when Barack Obama was elected as a president, he was the first black president of America. Everyone knows that. And he served 2 presidential terms. He served his president term for 2 tenures. In the Times of India, I read at that time, long ago it is a matter of, it was quoted, he rules the world that is governed by color. I still remember that. It was so beautifully written, and I really admire the person who wrote that. So this is like, that thing is into me till now. So why don't the students believe that if they read, they would transfer their lives, they would transform their levels of the language, which would enable them to make entry into any country, any university. Sky's the limit, students. That's it.
Absolutely. Such a wonderful answer. Okay, so the next question that I have for you is, you have been training multiple students, you've been doing this from a very long time. As a trainer, were there any challenges that you faced while preparing the students?
Yeah, there were. The biggest challenge, I would say, is the students from India. They come from a diverse linguistic profile. If I say linguistic, yeah, we all have various mother tongues. India is a diverse country wherein students are from all parts of the country. And we are influenced by a mother tongue.
Absolutely.
Now, we have had students who were from not metro cities or cosmopolitan cities or from any capital cities of the respective states. And yeah, they have this linguistic influence. So when it comes to make them speak, yeah, that is a big challenge, because the pronunciation and intonation is completely different to what IELTS requires. When we are evaluated with our speaking skills, yeah, we are checked upon that how do you pronounce each and every word with the language. Okay. When it comes to pronunciation, students, one more thing keep in mind. Whenever you'll prepare for the test, whenever you'll be preparing for speaking, never ever fake your accent. Never. We have grown up with an Indian accent, and our English could be sound impressive with the accent that we are using normally. And Indian accent, but the usage should be proper. Try to improve your grammar rather than focusing on your accent. So this is one thing when students come to speak like, I'd like to go to Canada, and that is a very bad thing. I'm not making fun of anyone, but yeah, that's a challenge, because at that point the student, his marks would be put down. He would be lowering his scores. So we're not supposed to fake our accents. We can sound beautiful and perfect in English, even with the Indian accent.
That is correct. That is correct. And also, when somebody is faking their accent, it is pretty apparent.
It is
apparent. We can see that.
We're Indians. See, we have never attended any institution, and also we have never attended any teachers or mentors who used to fake their accents. So why are we influenced at this moment? And this is not the time to fake the accent.
That's true. Moving on to the next question, I wanted to ask you, I'm pretty sure our listeners are listening to you and getting inspired. I think that most of the listeners are preparing for IELTS, and after this podcast, most of the listeners will. So for those listeners, I would ask a question from you. How can we enhance our vocabulary if we are willing to clear the IELTS exam? How can we work upon our vocabulary?
All right, that's again an interesting question, because the students need to know that. Because all those who are listening might be inquisitive that how could we? In fact, there is a way, and when there is a will, there is a way. The will is that I have to go to an international destination, and the way is, yeah, we are discussing the way right now. We are paving our way. In fact, when it comes to learning vocabulary, see, vocabulary is abundant in the world. It's enormous. It's gigantic, if we could state that. Even if I talk about myself, I am a trainer. I even, honestly speaking, and I confess it all the times, I'm not aware of all the existing words in the universe. Really not. But I have enriched myself with vocabulary because of strenuous reading. Do not only read, because there are at times words that we do not know. Even I come across unfamiliar words, but what do? I make note of those words. I have my journals. I write the word, I write the meaning, and I frame 5 sentences with that word. What happens is that vocabulary gets incorporated in my language. We know that. And that is how those words are being shared with my students. My students, if they would be listening to that, they know that how
I'm
they are
pretty sure
blessed.
they will.
Yeah. So that is one thing that we can enrich our vocabulary with. Whenever you come across a word, let the word get imbibed in you. That's how you'll progress with word. And yeah, one more thing, our sentence structures need to be complex. Because if I say a simple word, I eat pizza, my sister eats tacos. There are two different words which we have a punctuation with a period. Full stop is there in distinguishing between the two sentences. But if I use a connector over here, if I say, I love pizza whereas my sister loves tacos. Now this connector, has just increased the level of the sentence. So our sentences always have to be complex. And see, again, my dear students and the people who are listening, when you will be listening to this entire podcast, there is not a single word in the world that you would have never heard. So do you think that English is a battle? No, it is not. Seriously not.
That is true. So we can make use of connectors in order to,
Make our sentences complex, yeah.
Okay, that is great. So the next question, or the last question that I have for you is, what are the common mistakes that the test makers usually do, and how can we avoid those mistakes?
Exactly. The very first thing, so when I talk about listening, distraction is a biggest error. We have to listen to an audio for whole 30 minutes. Now, dear students, if you stay distracted and if something bothers you during those 30 minutes, you're playing with your test. We are paying a huge amount, our parents are paying a huge amount. The test is charging an enormous amount. The students are already aware of the amount of the test. Take it seriously, please. Do not get distracted. That will be a big hindrance to the entire test. Secondly, read carefully. Underline the keywords always. The keywords primarily are nouns, and if it is a proper noun, you are helped already because it will be there in the capital letter. If it is a date or a year, then again you are helped. You'll be able to locate a keyword again. When it comes to writing, the challenge the students face is they are asked to, as I told earlier, that a writing test requires a productive skills. So we need to paraphrase a sentence in the beginning of an essay or in the beginning of a summary writing. So we need to be very much clear and concise with what are we writing. Please make it formal. Please pay attention to all the punctuations. Do remember that you are sitting for a test that is requiring you a score. If you have this thing in your mind that I one day will take Ielts, I'll fly away with good bands and I'll go to my desired institution or university, please take it seriously. If you're distracted and not following the protocols of Ielts, you will be at loss, and I'm not threatening you, I'm just guiding you. So that's it.
That's true. Of course, distraction is the biggest threat. No
in
matter
fact.
in what we do.
Exactly, in fact.
That's true. That was truly a very, very, very insightful session. I'm pretty sure our listeners must have found it really helpful.
I hope so.
And lastly, ma'am, is there a message you would like to give to our audience watching us?
Of course. So, dear students, with every question, I was all over to you that do this and don't do that. Yeah. Please take your studies seriously. If you are planning to go abroad, the very first thing, now I'll just move ahead of Ielts. The very first thing, if you're sitting for your grade 12 or if you're in your final semester of your bachelor's program, take your test seriously, because this again is an imperative record with in case of your mark sheets, because the higher your scores, be it percentage wise or if we calculate CGPA, the higher the scores, the more are the chances the university is preferring you. The very first thing, focus on your academics. Second test is the Ielts test that you will be practicing. Please practice it properly and diligently. Have your documents clear. Do not prefer an educational gap in your studies. The moment you are done with your examination, please prepare your journey to study abroad, because we don't believe in any student wasting his or her time, because every minute, every month, every quarter is important to us. So we are in our productive years. We have already spent our formative years. Now it is our productive years. You all are at your youth. Make the most out of it so that you all have a promising and a bright career.
That was a very lovely message. And lastly, it's almost the end of a podcast. Thank you so much, ma'am, for dedicating your valuable time for us. We truly appreciate
In
that.
fact, thank you for having me. It was really
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And of course, thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in with us. Well, now our time's up, so I'm gonna have to take my leave. But aap kahin mat jayega, because I'll be back again with another phenomenal personality, another phenomenal podcast real soon. Till then, stay happy, stay safe, and keep on watching the BSSS Rhythm podcast. This is RJ Farzeen signing off.
BSSS Rhythm.